Hey! In this episode, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Dragonwood, from gamewrightgames. These are the components in Dragonwood. There are 6 custom dice, and there are a large deck of cards, which splits into 2 different decks of cards and 2 player aids. So you'll give each player a player aid. You will shuffle these decks here. You will give 5 cards from the red deck here, which is called the Adventurer deck, to each player. And then you will turn over 5 cards from this deck here. In this deck, there are a few different kinds of cards. There are these encounter cards here. There are also creature cards, these green bordered cards here, and there are also event cards. When the event cards come out, we will deal with them individually. For now, we're going to leave the setup like this. In order to properly set this game up, you will need to remove some cards from this deck based on the number of players you're playing with, and then you're going to shuffle in these 2 dragon cards into the bottom half of this deck here. So we'll approximate the bottom half of the deck. We will shuffle each dragon card in and give that a good little shuffle. All right, and then we're set up and ready to go. So Dragonwood is a pretty simple little card game. What's going to happen on your turn is that you have 2 options. You can either reload, which simply means that you take a card from this deck here and place it into your hand, which is what I'm going to do. Or you can attempt to capture one of these items or creatures here. Well, let's talk about that in a second. So we'll pretend that on your turn, you reloaded. All right, so on my turn, I'm going to show you my hand of cards. I have some good little cards here. I've got a 1, a 9, an 8, a 4, a 7, and a 9. And you should note that cards in this deck here come in numbers 1 through 12 and 5 different colors: red, green, purple, blue, and orange. So on my turn, if I don't want to reload, I can instead attempt to capture an item or a creature. And the way that I'm going to do this is I am going to strike, stomp, or scream at a creature. So this little player aid here shows us each one of those things that we can attempt to do and how exactly we'll go about doing them. So if I were going to strike at a creature, I would need cards that had numbers in a row, sequential numbers. So in this case here, I do have a 7, 8, and 9, which I could use in order to attempt to strike at a creature. I also could stomp at a creature, and that just means that I need the same number repeated. So I do have a couple of 9s here I could use to stomp on a creature if I would like to try that. Or the last thing I could possibly do is attempt to scream at a creature. And to scream at a creature, I just need all my cards to be the same color. So in this instance here, I have a couple of choices. I could do purple or I could do blue. So I'm going to choose one of these ways in which I will interact with a creature. And then I will discard those cards to get a matching number of dice. So for example, let's pretend that I am going to attempt to strike these lucky bats here. Now remember, in order to strike, I needed numbers in a row. So let's go back to the 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to put these aside for now, and I'm going to use the 7, 8, 9 to attempt to strike these lucky bats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discard the cards that I'm playing, and then I'm going to take an equal number of dice. So I would get 3 dice since I played 3 cards. Now it's important to note that these dice here do not have numbers 1 through 6 on them like normal 6-sided die do. These have only the numbers 1 through 4. The numbers 2 and 3 repeat twice each. All right, so I'm attempting to strike these crazy bats here, and I need to get a 4 or better across these 3 dice. So I will roll out, and I've got 4, 6, 7. So I definitely met or exceeded the strike value of the bats, so I would get to take them and place them in front of me like this. At the end of the game, it would be worth 1 point for the card that I had captured. Now, if I had failed in my attempt to strike at the crazy bats, I would have to discard an additional card as a penalty. I will refill the row here at the end of my turn, and if an event comes up like this one, we'll just deal with the event. This one here says that we remove all enhancements in the landscape and replace them with other cards. So these two purple cards here are advancements. They would be discarded, and we would turn over new cards in their place. We would also discard the event card and turn over a new card in its place. And then it would be my opponent's turn. A couple of things to note is that there is a hand limit of 9 cards. So if you exceed the hand limit of 9 cards, you do have to discard down to 9 at the end of your turn. Another thing to note is that these purple cards here can be very helpful when you're attempting to capture other cards. For example, this Ghost Disguise will add 2 points to any scream. So I will capture this card here just as I would capture any other card by striking, stomping, or screaming at it. And if I meet the values of those numbers there, I will capture it and I'll put it in my tableau. And then on future turns, any scream that I attempt will automatically have 2 points of success toward it. Now, these come in different forms. There are kinds that you can use throughout the whole game, and there are also single-use cards that you can hang on to until you'd like to use them. However, you cannot use a purple card to capture another purple card. So we will go back and forth on our turns, either reloading, taking a card, or attempting to capture one of the cards out here. It is important to note that in the adventure deck of cards, there are some lucky ladybugs. When you draw a lucky ladybug, you'd immediately discard it and draw 2 additional cards. The end of the game is triggered when either we've run through the adventure card deck twice, in which case we will finish out that round with each player getting an additional turn, including the player who drew out the last card of the adventure card deck. That's one way the game can end. The second way is, remember those dragons we shuffled into the bottom half of this deck here when we started? If both of the dragons come out and are defeated by players, then that is the second way that the game could end. When the game ends, players will add up all of their points from these shields here, and whoever has the most victory points wins the game. That's Dragonwood, a 2 to 4 player game from GameWrightGames. Thanks for joining me.